And we're back.
And that sounded so weird.
I know, it sounded creepy. Hi! Welcome back.
Have you noticed that? I think we did this in the first episode, but as soon as I kind of get into my podcast mind, I try and put on like a really relaxing voice. I'm like, hello there, and
It's
welcome
like ASMR.
to Love Has No Limits.
I know.
I
feel like because when I listen to podcasts, it's like I always like if I'm doing something, it's like in my headphones, so it's just like kind of relaxing. So I want it to be the same.
Anyway, guys, welcome to Love Has No Limits. My name is Sam.
My name is Monica,
and we are your hosts for, well, I was going to say for today, but for every
Forever.
single podcast. Yeah,
we will always be the host.
Yeah, if you're tired of us already, we don't blame you. Anyways,
sorry.
So we had a lovely girl, Ella, who emailed into the show, and she basically said that she hasn't met her partner yet. She's in a long distance relationship. They haven't met yet. And she wanted to get some advice on meeting her partner for the first time. What was it like? What to expect? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, she asked us how we met for the first time, like what it was like actually seeing each other. So not how we met, but meeting in person for the first time. So we thought we would talk a little bit more about how we first met in person, and we did a little bit in the last episode, but we'll get into more detail today. And then we're going to go into more of how, like, what to expect, I feel like, when you go to meet your partner, because it's not as simple as some people might think.
No, definitely. And just to let you guys know, we're not therapists, we're not licensed, we're not accredited. We're not giving you kind of legal advice for you to kind of depend upon here.
Yeah, it's just from our own experiences.
But we have experience in this. We have been in a long distance relationship now for almost 5 years, and the amount of times we've flown back and forth is astonishing, isn't it? So I feel like we can speak from our own personal experience.
Plus, we've obviously had to meet in person for the first time too. So we went through this scary phase as well, like years ago. So, and I remember it like it was yesterday because it was just like
I remember it like it was yesterday. However, it was the 11th of October 2015.
Yes.
And do you want to tell the story?
Okay. So I feel like before we get into more of that, just a disclaimer, which we'll get into more afterwards, but
second disclaimer.
Sam and I knew each other on FaceTime for a while. We got to know each other on FaceTime. I'll get more into that after, but so we knew exactly who we were meeting. So when we first met in person, obviously the process was crazy. We finally got to Euston Station in London. So I arrived first, and I remember you saying that you wanted to arrive first because you were like, I want to arrive with flowers.
Yeah.
I was like, and then I show up, and then I was like,
no, but my train was meant to arrive first. So basically, guys, I live about 3.5 hours away from London. I live in Cheshire in England. And Monica was obviously flying in from New York. We live about 3,500 miles away from each other. So my train, I remember my train got in at 12:30 p.m. on the 11th of October 2015. I remember it perfectly. I even remember walking into the main train station, and I remember everything perfectly. It's crazy. But yeah, you weren't meant to get in until about half an hour after, but you got in before me, didn't you?
Yeah, and I was so excited. I remember I had to go up an escalator, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, what if he's right there? Like, I don't know what to expect. And then I got up, and I was like, oh, he's not here.
So to give you guys like some... and I remember you tried going to the toilet, but you were you
had to pay to go to the bathroom. So I was like, okay, at least I have time to like, put some perfume on and like fix my makeup.
What is it, like 20 pence or something?
I don't even know. I didn't have any like
I was going to say,
cash.
you'd just flown in, so you didn't have any cash.
So actually, in a way, I was kind of glad that you weren't there because I wanted to get ready, but I also didn't get ready because I didn't know you had to pay to use the bathroom. But that's beside the point. I remember exactly where I was standing.
I remember exactly where you're standing, next to a ticketing booth.
And where you came from. And I remember I was just standing around, like, looking around, like, oh my gosh, any moment this is going to be it. And I turned, and I saw you coming, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, my heart literally dropped. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, here it comes.
Did you recognize me straight away?
Honey, with that face?
Girl. No, serious question, though.
I really
did I look different in person compared to...
You looked a little different in person, but it's all good.
What was different about me?
I had no idea how tall you actually were going to be. Like, I had no idea, like, I only really see your face and stuff. I had no idea really anything. So I have no idea. I have no idea what you're going to look like in real life, but it was pretty much exactly what I pictured from, the few photos that I've seen and stuff. So...
And we, like you said before, we'd Skyped, we'd FaceTimes, we really got to know each other through video calling before we actually met, didn't we? And and like you said, that's one of the points we're going to come on to when we're kind of giving our personal advice on this topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to give you guys kind of some background on us, I'm generally a pretty outgoing, confident guy. Like,
And I'm shy.
I'm not really fazed by much. Monica, you're kind of the opposite, aren't you? You're pretty introverted, you're pretty shy and stuff. But it was so crazy how the roles were initially reversed, weren't they? As soon as we met, like, I've never experienced meeting a girl before and genuinely just not knowing what to say. Like, I've always kind of prided myself in being able to kind of hold a conversation and like being outgoing. Yeah, exactly like you said. But literally, I walked up to this gorgeous girl, and the first thing I noticed about you was how tall you were and how long your legs were. I absolutely loved it. Because I think we did talk about height, but like, you can't really picture someone until you actually meet them,
and you always like you like tall girls, like your past girlfriends and stuff are always like really tall. So I was really glad that you liked that about me. But I remember you walking over to me, and I was like, my heart literally was like, I was scared that you could see my heart pounding out of my chest, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, here he comes. And you walked over me, and we hugged. We did not kiss, but we hugged. And I remember thinking, like, is he gonna kiss me? Like, I don't know what to do.
We kissed like 20 minutes later, didn't we?
I know, but like, I didn't know if it was gonna happen. I didn't know if it was gonna happen in the moment, so I was like, oh, okay, I have to still be prepared.
Should we do an episode on our first kiss at some point?
Ooh.
And everyone's first kiss, and maybe get someone else talking about it.
That would be really interesting.
That'd be cool, right? But yeah, so anyway, I generally am pretty outgoing, pretty confident and stuff, but I remember I was walking up to this gorgeous goddess, basically, in the train station.
Who? Because it's not me.
Oh,
goddess.
It was you, honey.
Oh.
And I just was completely lost for words. I remember I started hugging you, and initially, I obviously said hi, and then I was like, hi. You smell good.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what? Really? I just got off a plane for 8 hours.
No, I didn't say that.
But I can guarantee that's what you're thinking. And then I was like, is the heist okay? And that's all I could muster. That's all I could say.
As if I'm going to say no.
Yeah. Imagine like, no, Sam, 6 foot isn't good enough.
I have to fly home.
No. By the way, my return flight's in 20 minutes. Bye-bye.
I just remember, like, I was so nervous. And when I get really nervous, I feel like I talk a lot. So I just couldn't stop talking.
I remember, and you're doing your like high voice when you're like really excited. You're like, oh my God, you're here. You're like, oh my God, I'm in England.
No, I was
oh my God, you're so tall. You're real. Oh my God. I remember all of it.
I just remember thinking like, I was like, oh my gosh, hi, like, you're real. And then, like, you weren't replying. I'm like, oh my God.
I was just kind of smiling, like, oh my gosh, what do I say to this girl? So finally, I picked up the confidence to ask her on a date, kind of. So basically, right outside Euston train station in London is a restaurant that we absolutely love. And we actually had it for lunch today. Yes. Nando's. It's everybody in Britain loves
it's
Nando's,
amazing.
Basically. Yeah. So I took Monica to Nando's on our first kind of little date. You were starving, weren't you?
Guys,
you hadn't eaten anything.
When I tell you, I was so hungry. I think it was like 14 hours since I last ate, because I was like on the plane. I didn't like the plane food, and like it was not.
Put it this way though, Monica used to be, much more than now, you used to be a very picky eater, didn't you?
Yeah.
So Monica took one look at the menu and decided she just didn't like anything.
I was scared. I was nervous.
So she ate stale Pringles instead.
Okay, first of all, they were not stale.
They were gone off. No. They tasted horrible.
I got them before the flight, but after the flight in like WH Smith or somewhere.
Oh, really?
But they were like UK Pringles, and they just didn't taste the same.
No, because I remember I tried one. I was like, yeah, they're not normal. Like, there was something wrong with those Pringles. But you're like, I'm fine, I promise. You're like, you're like nibbling away at these Pringles. I was like, Monica, like, I'm so sorry, but I am so hungry. I haven't eaten anything today. You know, I got on a train at, I don't know, 8 a.m. or something like that to get down to London. I think I got on a train at 9 to get down to London for 12:30 or so.
Yeah.
So I hadn't had any breakfast or anything like that. And I thought, you know, we'll have a good old feast for our first date. So I was like, I'm so sorry, but I'm so hungry. I'm going to eat something. I bet your mouth was watering so much watching me.
Yeah, it's like after I was like, I should have got something to eat. I was just like,
when
nervous.
Did you eat for the first time?
The next day when we got KFC and made a song about it.
The next day? So you didn't eat for over 24 hours?
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh.
I was nervous. Remember we made the KFC song with that?
Yes.
Anyways.
That's a different story.
So that's basically a rundown of how we first met in person, how it went down.
We haven't really talked about our feelings much, have we, when we first met? So to kind of very briefly go over our feelings when we first met, well, I did kind of briefly go over it. I basically just I was completely beside myself. I had no idea what to say or do or how to act.
Yeah,
I started acting. I remember thinking like I was so nervous and like I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to mess it up. So I was like being really stiff. Like, you know, not like cheeky, like...
Oh, Oh my
No,
gosh.
like, you know when like you're feeling like awkward, you're in an awkward situation, like you feel like your body goes stiff, like you can't like fully look around with your head and stuff. I remember feeling like that, but then I was thinking like, why am I feeling like this? Because we talked for months on you know, FaceTime and Skype and whatever, Zoom or whatever.
I think in a way, maybe like deep down, both of us were really nervous to like not have the same kind of spark in real life than we obviously did online. So maybe like I think in a way I was nervous about that. Like, what if like in person he doesn't like me as much, kind of thing. So I think that
I was kind of nervous about that
as well.
Do you know what? I remember thinking while I was on the train on the way down to the station, I remember thinking like, what if she is a catfish? And then every time I thought about that, I was like, no, we've literally video called like at least 20, 30 times. I was like, she cannot be a catfish.
I was like, new technology.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was like, what if like she's being paid? What if she's an actress or something? And like, I'm going to get kidnapped or something like that. I don't know.
No,
I remember thinking
that. I had a lot of the same thoughts because I was just like, this guy's so good looking. He's so out of my league. I don't understand how this is about to happen.
Oh, stop. You're not.
No, like literally, I was like, there's no possible way that this guy is literally coming to meet me right now. Like, there's just no way. So my head was all over the place. I was so nervous. Like, I was just like, what if it doesn't go well in person? Like, it's just scary.
I think one thing that we can probably agree on is that we were exactly as pictured.
Yeah.
So, you were exactly what I expected, because once, you know, obviously we were very shy and we were very kind of, you know, reserved when we first met each other, but I feel like we kind of got into our own pretty quickly. Like, basically throughout the kind of fake Nando's date with just me eating, we kind of slowly started to come into our own, and the kind of the banter was there, and the actual kind of, you know, the spark was there
really well.
To the point where I remember we walked out and we saw that funny kind of half rude poster, and I was posing, taking a picture for your dad and stuff.
Yep.
So like we really started to kind of come into our own and be the same as on FaceTime or Skype or Zoom or whatever within a short period of time.
The first like few minutes is definitely a little bit awkward just because you don't know like what's going through the other person's head, but as you guys are spending more time together, it just falls into place so well.
But I think the main reason that we were as expected is because we talked so much on FaceTime and Skype and Zoom and stuff. And the fact that we didn't really have expectations. Like, I didn't go into meeting you thinking, you know, we weren't actually girlfriend, boyfriend.
Yeah.
I actually asked you to be my girlfriend 4 days later, didn't I?
Yeah.
And I wasn't planning on doing a trip. Like, I just thought, I don't know about you, but I kind of thought it would be like a summer fling kind of thing.
I literally thought that as well, because I was like, there's just... We know it was my first time visiting England.
I'd never heard of a long distance relationship before.
Me either. And like, it was my first time visiting England, and that was like my dream destination for the longest time. So I was like, oh, this is going to be like the only time I ever come here for a really long time. But then like, who knew, like a few months later, literally 3 months later, I came back. Like, we just knew we were...
Well, the month after meeting, I flew to America to meet your family for the first time for your birthday, didn't I? In November 2015. So I think so that's the story of how we first met. How about we move on to kind of, based on our experience of when we first met each other, we've kind of put together 3 points of things to kind of think about and to take into consideration stuff when you're first meeting your partner in real life.
Yeah.
So do you want to kind of go through those? So number 1.
The first one I feel like is so important.
Definitely.
So if you guys haven't met your partner yet and you're planning on to, I really, really would advise listening to these points. Like we said, we're not professionals at all, but based from experience, this is just what I would, you know, say to do. So the first thing is know exactly who you're meeting, because with technology nowadays, like Sam and I were just saying, like, things are crazy. So you might think you're talking to someone online, but if you haven't ever FaceTimed them or you haven't like Skyped them or anything like that, you know, you don't
and actually seen them kind of, you know, let's be honest, everybody has a camera now.
Yeah.
Everybody can FaceTime, everybody can Skype, everybody can Zoom. There is literally no excuse.
Yeah.
And if you can't, and you're planning to be in a long distance relationship and you're planning to spend potentially thousands of dollars going to visit each other, you can throw $20 aside for a webcam.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a big deal. That's not an excuse.
So I really, 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 really want to push that out there. Like, know exactly who you're meeting, because you don't want to be catfish. You don't, and especially like there's a lot of scary things going on. So if you go there and like no one's, you want to meet somewhere public as well, because if you go somewhere and you've never seen the person like on FaceTime or anything, like you don't know exactly who you're meeting, and you're not in a public place. Like, it's just, there's a lot of bad things that can happen. So please make sure to know exactly who you're meeting. Know them online.
So the overview of that is, get to know them and make sure you video call. make sure that you literally know exactly who you are meeting, and meet in a public place, and just ensure that you're safe at all times when you first meet each other, because you may feel like you've known this person for ages. It's like, do you know what I keep thinking of?
What?
Of Yolanda and Williams
from
before the 90 Days. And it's like, Yolanda's been talking to this guy for ages and ages, and they've talked on the phone, but it turns out that he was a scam artist because they never FaceTime, they never video called. She had no clue who she was talking to at the end of the day.
Yeah, so you really, really need to be careful of stuff like that, especially nowadays. Next point is whether you're going to meet your partner in their place or they're coming to see you in your country or state, wherever. Make sure your schedules align, because you don't want to go somewhere and then your partner's like, I have work or this, that. Like, you want your schedules to be both open and free.
We're not saying, like, you know, if you go and visit your partner for a couple of weeks or something like that, we're not saying they can't work at all if they've got a full-time job. But, you know, try and work around your holidays and stuff to make the most of your time together, because, you know, generally, if you are in a long-distance relationship, it's going to be expensive to visit each other, and you're gonna have to take time off work, you're gonna have to put money to the side and stuff. So basically all we're saying in that point is, before you meet each other, just coordinate the best time possible rather than the nearest time possible to make it happen.
You want as much free time when you go to see each other. So if it's like in the summer or something where both of you have a lot of time off work or something like that, like a winter break, you don't want to go there and then, you know, both of you are busy doing whatever, especially if you're going to visit them somewhere and you're stuck basically doing nothing, because it's not obviously a place you're familiar with. Like,
we've actually got experience with that, haven't we? Obviously not the first time we met, but, you know, a few times when you've come to the UK, I've been having to go off to meetings quite often and you know, working on kind of getting these businesses kind of up and running and stuff. And I guess that's something that you have to live with in a long distance relationship. But for the first time meeting each other, you know, you want to be able to spend as much time as possible with each other and really kind of get to know the real each other, rather than going over to somewhere for a couple of weeks and only seeing your partner for a couple of hours because they're working.
Yeah, because you're not with each other for a long period of time, so make the most of it. So try to make your schedules match as much as you can.
And number 3 is, people can come across a lot differently online versus in real life. So if you feel like you know someone really well online, obviously it makes it much easier if you can video chat, which was obviously our number 1 point. But if you feel like you know someone really well online, you're texting all the time, you're Snapchatting, stuff like that, just remember that someone may be completely different in person in comparison to their kind of online persona, their online personality. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be a bad thing. I'm not saying it's going to be a good thing. I'm just saying, when you go to meet your partner for the first time, just be prepared, because their personality in real life could be vastly different.
Expectations.
Yeah, like, for example, when Monica and I were FaceTiming for the first time, and you know, we were just kind of FaceTiming as friends when we first started FaceTiming, and didn't really think much was going to come of this meeting. But obviously I was always super outgoing on FaceTime. You were pretty outgoing on FaceTime. We got really comfortable with each other on FaceTime. But then when we first met in real life, if we didn't give each other a chance to kind of, you know, to kind of get used to each other and kind of get close to each other and come out of our shells, then we wouldn't be sitting here today. So, you know, give yourselves times. If you're introverted, especially, if you're shy, especially when meeting new people, or if you're especially nervous or whatever, you give each other time to really come out of your shell and kind of learn who the other person is in real life. Yeah,
I have a really good example. I know somebody personally who, they were dating someone online. It was a long distance relationship type of thing where they haven't met each other, but they felt like they knew each other and everything about each other. And I remember her saying to me, like, this is like the perfect guy. He's literally like a Prince Charming. He knows exactly like the great things to say to me, make me feel so special, all this stuff. But when she ended up meeting him in person, it was a completely different story, because online with text and stuff, you could say whatever the other person wants to hear. You know, like,
you've got it. That kind of brings us on to a little 4th point, doesn't it? That you've got to be truthful with the other person about who you are, about your personality, about your past, about your appearance, all that kind of stuff, haven't you? Because if someone, for example, travels a couple of thousand miles to visit you, and you've painted this absolute perfect picture of yourself and of your appearance and of your family being perfect and of, you know, your life going perfectly and your financial situation, or whatever kind of variables, and then someone spends a ton of money traveling a couple of thousand miles to meet you, and you're completely different in real life, it would really be hard on the other person, wouldn't it? So that's kind of a little 4th point, is always be truthful about who you are and what you do.
Going back to what I said, it's like, this person, when she ended up meeting him in real life, you know, their relationship was really not a good relationship. It was very, very toxic, because in person they were completely different people to what they, you know, thought that they were online. So that's just like another thing, is don't have high expectations and stuff like when you go to meet somebody, because it might be different. Like, for all we know, like, before Sam and I met, like, he could have been, like, really mean to people for no reason or something, and, like, obviously you're not going to see that when you're on the phone with them or, like, talking for, like, an hour a day, like, on Skype or something. You don't really see exactly the type of person they are.
You can get a good idea through video calling, though, can't you?
Yeah, you can definitely get a good idea, but when you meet in person, like, a lot of things will change. You'll see how they treat people, you'll see how, they treat you in real life, and all that type of stuff that comes into play, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah, so basically, as a real brief overview of kind of the 3 that's now turned into 4 points, number 1 is make sure you video called each other. There's no excuse in this day and age with this technology and the amounts of money it costs to buy a webcam. It's if you can afford a long distance relationship, you can afford a webcam at the end of the day. Number 2 is when you do initially meet each other for the first time, make sure your schedules align. You can spend as much time with each other as possible. Number 3 is basically don't have kind of expectations of what someone is going to be like in real life, because it may differ to their kind of online personality, but kind of work with someone until they kind of come out of their shell and they show their kind of true colors and their true self, because they may be exactly the same person. It's just maybe they're a little bit shy or introverted. And number 4 is for yourself, just be completely truthful about who you are, what you do, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's a bit of an overview, isn't it, of the 4 points that we have from our own personal experience of meeting someone from the internet, basically.
Yeah, so I just want to say a quick shout out to Ella for sending in that question. And we've been getting so many emails from you guys. Like we told you, if you want to be featured on the show and actually physically come on the show, well, not physically, but you know what I mean? Like virtually come on the show.
We want to have your voice on the show.
Yeah. Then please send us an email at lovehasnolimits@gmail.com.
We always forget that, don't we?
But, yeah, so please, if you have any interesting stories, we have so many people who are emailing and so many unique stories, but we're going to give it some time to really get everyone's schedule mixed up and stuff, so we have to wait on that for a little bit, but for now, this is literally, like, insane the amount of emails we're getting. We really, really appreciate everyone who's listened to us.
Yeah, and by the way, if you fancy emailing, we're not just covering long-distance relationships. Yes. We're talking about everything to do with love, relationships, sexuality, whatever. And we don't just want to hear your stories. We want you to give us advice or us to give you advice on the show, or give another caller advice, or whatever it is. We want
you guys to literally come on the show. Like this episode, we answered a question, but the rest that we're going to try to do is like have people come on. Well, not the rest, but a lot of the episodes we want you guys to come on with us and actually talk to us over the phone and stuff. So
and if you have any ideas of kind of future episodes, let us know. But for now, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Make sure you follow us. Make sure you tell your friends and your partners and your families and all that kind of stuff. And we will catch you guys next time.
Thanks for listening.
And remember, love has no limits.
Oh, yes. And remember,
I love that.
Please remember, love has no limits.
You put on the voice again.
I know.
Just remember, guys, love has no limits. Bye.